What is up, you guys? The Teller checking it for UFC 291. We have the rematch between Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje. If you guys remember, they squared off back in 2018, and DP was the fighter that dug a little bit deeper and got that finish there in the fourth round. Both of these fighters have an extensive resume of going to war and delivering for the fans, but we specifically know what happens when you throw these two men in the cage with each other. All right, so you can expect nothing but fireworks here. This fight card, an extremely stacked fight card, a fight card that we've been all looking forward to. We've been comparing UFC 290 and 291 to each other for a couple weeks now, and obviously we've already seen UFC 290 take place. What card is a better card on paper? I'm curious. I still want to know your guys' thoughts. Are you anticipating this fight card more than you were anticipating UFC 290? And it's also worth noting, we did lose Paulo Costa and Ikram Aliskirov, which now Paulo Costa will be fighting Khamzat Chimaev on that UFC 294 card in Abu Dhabi. So that's super exciting. And then one other quick note as well, Jake Matthews will now be taking on Darius Flowers stepping in on short notice. Miguel Baeza unfortunately pulls out of that fight. That was a fight I was somewhat looking forward to here. And then one other quick note. We talk about all these big time cards taking place and whatnot. How about UFC 295? All right, Dana White just announced that John Jones will be taking on Stipe Miocic. You've got Colby Covington and Leon Edwards being targeted for that card as the co-main. To me, we talk about all these huge cards about to take place or having just took place. UFC 295 is the fight card. That's the one I'm waiting for. I'm super excited for that. And then real quick, just to point back to UFC 294 taking place in Abu Dhabi, a lot of good fights in that card. And Khamzat Chimaev now takes on Paulo Costa. It's going to be a crazy fight. And then you have the rematch of Charles Oliveira and Islam Makhachev. So you guys, for us fight fans, we're getting spoiled right now. I'm excited to break down this entire card. You guys know how we do it over here. We start at the bottom, work our way up to the top. We got timestamps if you want to jump to any specific fight. Now, I'm breaking down this card here relatively soon, relatively just before UFC London's taking place. So I cannot give you the recap here. That's not what we're doing. Remember, we have the new format. So go check out my recap video here in the channel because I have a lot of plays that are about to go down for UFC London. So hopefully it was a great night for me. I think it's gonna be a good night. So we'll see how that plays out. Obviously, you guys will already know as you're listening to this, but we'll have that recap there. Check out that video. And then and real quick before we jump into the first fight, if you guys please can like this video, give me some feedback in the comment section. It really helps me out. I would really appreciate it if you guys can do that. And also go check me out on my social media, specifically on IG, where I do a lot of good work there. And Twitter is also a great way to follow me. You can see me just putting my thoughts out throughout the week once in a while. So I appreciate you guys so much. It's about that time. Let's jump into the first fight.
The Teller.
It's another day. Left jab, right jab. This is MMA. Mixed martial arts, quick body parts, undefeated when I pick 'em. Who the champ, who the victim? Looking in my crystal ball, I predict the winner. Never stop fighting. If you lose, keep your chin up. Know how the game go. I'm a smart fella. Welcome to the show. This the MMA fortune teller.
The MMA fortune teller.
The Teller.
We have Jake Matthews taking on Darius Flowers. Remember, Flowers takes this fight on short notice as Miguel Baeza did have to withdraw. I think that might have been a good thing that happened for Baeza there because I truly believe that Matthews was going to find that chin. We know that Baeza, a one-time very, very promising and talented fighter, is a fighter that's really broken down and defensively he's very flawed and the chin's just been given out on him. I feel that Matthews would have found the chin there. So it's kind of interesting how we look at this fight here because you may think that Baeza, being the more known fighter, the more decorated fighter, that he would be more of a threat to Matthews. And Matthews was a minus 185 favorite going into the Baeza matchup. Darius Flowers a lot more unproven, but he's a tough dude and he might be a little bit more durable and may be able to bring a little bit more of a fight to Matthews. it's kind of interesting how we'll analyze that. And I'll tell you this, as I'm breaking down this fight, I do not have a betting line announced. This fight was just announced as I'm recording this, so or recently announced. So we go over to the performance that Flowers just had on Dana White's Contender Series, where he essentially injured his opponent in that fight, right? Against his name was Amarian Gogolazazi, I believe it was, the Georgian fight. Amarian Gogolazazi, who has since bounced back with the victory after that fight. And understand that Amarian is a very promising fighter, a very hyped up fighter. He was the favorite going in there against Flowers, and we saw some relative success early on. The fight didn't take place for long. It only took place for a minute and 15 seconds, but we saw the grappling skills that Amarian possessed. You saw him using his legs and whatnot, going for subs. But Flowers was able to avoid those early sub attempts, and he was able to kind of slam him down and basically injure him. I think he popped the shoulder out. He kind of injured the collarbone or something like that. And you got to give him credit for the W there. All right, that this is a tough dude. And, on the telecast, you see Sean O'Malley kind of trying to discredit the victory, and Cormier kind of had to step in and say, hey, give the man his credit. I mean, he did slam him down. He deserves to get credit for that finish. So I'm kind of in agreement with Cormier there. Now, I will say this. Darius Flowers' resume is not really that solid, if you ask me. Going into that fight, he has a couple of questionable losses scattered throughout his resume. A lot of submission losses as well. I mean, you take a look, right? He's 12-5. And if you take a look at those 5 losses, 4 of them coming by way of submission. And some of those guys that he was submitted against were not that much of respectable opponents. You could pull some of the fights up on YouTube. I mean, submitted by a guy that was 9-6 over an LFA. So, I know that he's been working on his grappling. I know he has the Gracie tattoo on his chest and whatnot. I still think that there's some flaws in his grappling, and I wouldn't be surprised if Matthews could potentially pull off a sub in this fight. Matthews is a guy that has 7 submission victories out of his 18 wins. This is a guy that does have the potential to go out there and pull off a sub. Jake Matthews, real quick, we'll talk about him real quick. I've always said that he's basically grown up in the octagon. He had his first fight very early on, and he really, really looked good in that fight. In the fight against Andre Fiallo, right? That was really when we saw Andre Fiallo first broken down. Fiallo was really catching some momentum, and then we saw Matthews kind of break Fiallo's chin down. He's recently been being put out by a lot of other guys, but Fiallo is a talented striker fighting out of Team Killcliff FC. The performance that he put on in that fight, in my opinion, was the greatest performance of Jake Matthews' career. And then it was very disappointing. He bounced back with a loss against Matthew Semelsberger, and I really didn't think he looked that good in that fight. When you go over the stats too, I mean, he was outstruck in that fight, 89-116. But more importantly, he was taken down in that fight. He was controlled down in the mat. He was controlled down in the mat for over 4 minutes. All right, 1/3 of the fight essentially, he was controlled down in the mat. So that does, I wouldn't say it worries me, but that wasn't a good look for Jake Matthews. But let me wrap up this fight here by saying Jake Matthews is a fighter that has been proving himself in the octagon throughout the whole beginning parts of his career. I still think that he has a bright future to come. He's only 28 years old. We're obviously siding with Jake Matthews here. I think that if he fights an intelligent fight and eventually looks to maybe pull off that sub, but even more importantly on the feet too. Striking wise, he should have more crisp and technical striking than what I've seen from Flowers. Flowers is tough. I know he's had a couple of recent knockouts over the last couple of fights, but against low level competition. And if Matthews comes out looking like he looked in that fight against, sorry about that. I don't know why his name keeps slipping my mind. I mean, I might as well forget his name at this point in time because the way he's been fighting, he's going to be gone from the UFC. Andre Fiallo, if he fights like he fought in that fight, and looks really sharp and technical, I think he can give some major problems to Flowers on the feet or down in the mat. Yes, I got Jake Matthews here. Now remember, I don't have a betting line for this fight right now, so I kind of like that. I like to kind of analyze where this line is going to be ahead of time and see where it pops up at. So again, Jake Matthews was a -185 against Miguel Baeza. I think that Miguel Baeza's name will hold more respect, so I expect Flowers to be a pretty decent dog here. I think that Jake Matthews is going to open up maybe at like a -250 favorite. I could be wrong there, but maybe it even goes up to like the -300 range, something like that, maybe 350. We'll see. because it's kind of interesting how people are going to evaluate Darius Flowers' performance that he just had, where he injured the opponent. We didn't get to see much from him. So we'll see how that all unravels. Matthews with the 2-inch reach advantage. He's the taller fighter. He's the more naturally larger fighter for the division here in the welterweight division. And Flowers needs to prove a lot more. But we have seen some of these younger fighters getting opportunities under the UFC banner for the first time, and some of them have been delivering. But I got Jake Matthews here all day. So see where that line's at. Maybe you want to use it in a parlay piece if it's a respectable line there. So I will definitely side with Jake Matthews. And, I'm going to try to make sure I pick for every fight specifically how the fight will end, whether it's decision, submission, or knockout. I'll give you guys that. I know a lot of you guys want that. I'm not crazy about always doing that because there's some specific matchups where I really feel there's a multitude of ways the fight can go. But I know some of you guys want that. So just understand that for every fight, I'm not really saying it with a lot of conviction. But in a spot like this, I'm going to pick Jake Matthews getting a submission in the second round. So Miranda Maverick will be stepping right back into the octagon as she was just in there, took a very tough loss against the very underrated Jasmine Justinivikius. She now takes on potentially another very underrated fighter in Priscila Cachoeira, depending on how you feel about her. I personally feel that she is an undervalued fighter. I think at this point in time, it's proven now that she is a little disrespected. When you take a look at the betting lines that have been next to her name and you think about the performances that she's put out there, she's won numerous times as a dog. Not only does she go out there and win, she goes out there and starches her opponents. Or maybe starch is a little bit extreme, but she goes out there and gets some knockouts. She's a tough girl. She has a solid frame for the division. And it's just crazy how, a fighter could be looked at one way just a few years ago and then kind of change that perception of them. When you think about how she bursted on the scene, getting absolutely demolished by Valentina Shevchenko, and just having a couple of tough performances. I mean, she looked like a scrub that was on her way to being cut from the UFC. It's just not the case. I mean, she's a tough chick. You take a look at some of the work that she's been doing recently. She's coming off a knockout victory in the first round against Ariane Lipsky. She defeated Ji Young Kim. That was debatable. It was a very close fight, but she showed her toughness once again. She was submitted by Jillian Robertson, but before that, knocks out Gina Mazzani, knocks out Shayna Dobson, had a close fight with Luana Carolina. Had a decision loss to Molly McCann, and Valentina Shevchenko obviously destroyed her. That we talked about that. So, but the big performances are those 4 victories, the 3 knockouts, and she's kind of proven her worth to be on the roster. So that can't be really overstated. For a fighter like her, she's 34 years old. If these fighters were to be matched up, just a couple years ago, this line would have been ridiculous. I think that Miranda Maverick may have touched a -1,000, a -1,200 if these fighters were matched up a few years ago when Miranda Maverick had more hype than ever. She still has that hype, but some of the recent performances that she's put out have definitely taken away from that. She's dropped the ball now a couple of times, right? When you think about it, in her last fight against Jasmine Justinivikius, she was controlled down in the mat for an extensive amount of time, which is interesting. She had the close loss to Macy Barber. A lot of people thought that she should have got the nod there. But again, just letting that fight play out as closely as it did wasn't a good look for her there. Come on, there's a couple other performances, right? There's at least another performance that she's had that was questionable. She went out there, took out Shayna Young, was a layup fight in the rematch. She submitted Sabina Mazo. She got dominated by Erin Blanchfield. Now, Erin Blanchfield is obviously maybe the uncrowned champ, but Blanchfield is a very talented grappler, so that was what it was. And again, depending on how you look at the Macy Barber fight. So I think that Miranda Maverick has plenty of time to right the ship here. She's still only 26 years old. That's what you have to understand. There's going to be some hiccups with fighters that are so young and growing up in the octagon, right? She's learning as she goes, and she's still a very talented fighter. And I think that by the time she's 30, she will be a very, very proven and well-rounded fighter. She's very physically strong. But you take a look at this matchup here. She is significantly shorter, about 3.5 inches shorter, but she actually has a half-inch reach advantage there in the feet. She has that southpaw striking, decent power. But when I think about this fight as a whole, I do believe that Miranda Maverick can kind of mix things up overall better than Priscila can do, and I think that she could take the fight over like that. I think that she can sneak in a takedown. She can kind of control her against the cage, just mix things up a little bit better than Priscila Cachoeira can. Now, I don't say that with a lot of confidence, though, man. I don't know. Maybe Priscila will make this an ugly war, and she can kind of take over in some of those exchanges. But again, when you actually do analyze some of the recent losses that Miranda Maverick has had, it's not that she's just going out there and just getting outclassed in the feet. She's actually struggled with her takedown defense. She's been controlled down in the match. She's been taken down in the Blanchfield fight and in her last fight against Jasmine. But those fighters, in my opinion, are more refined and better than a Priscila Cachoeira. So yes, I will take Miranda Maverick to get the job done here. But let's go take a look at that betting line, because like I said, this betting line could have been much different just a couple years ago. Now, Miranda Maverick is a minus 347 over at Jazz Sports. She opened as a minus 395. So you notice that the line is trending the other way, which is exactly what I would have thought. That's exactly what I would have thought when this line opens up at a 4-1 line, minus 400. I expected that line to come down because this fight definitely has the potential to play out much closer than that. Over on DraftKings, she's a minus 325 right now. I think that line will stabilize right around 290 to 300, right around there. I think people will understand that this is a women's flyweight match that has all the potential to play it extremely close. Could be a split decision type of fight. We've seen that type of fight take place before with Miranda, and I think that there's potential there. But overall, I'm going to say that Miranda Maverick wins a decision. I think that she's just a little bit more refined. And, we'll run over some numbers real quick. Priscila Cachoeira absorbs 7.85 strikes per minute on the feet. So her defense is definitely flawed, although she lands more, landing 4.68 compared to Miranda's 3.82. And I do think that she could potentially have more offensive success. Or she could just be a little bit more offensive, but at the same time, she'll be more vulnerable with her defense, and Miranda can land a shot here and there. She has some decent power. Maybe she makes it a takedown herself, and we'll take a look at the grappling numbers. Miranda Maverick, 54% takedown accuracy. Well, Priscila actually has a 64% takedown defensive rate. It's just a solid number. So, there's some recipe here for some trouble to start for Miranda, and she better not drop this fight, because I'll tell you what, if she loses this fight, I definitely believe that the buzz behind her will take a major step back. I still think she'll have potential. She's young, but this will definitely very negatively impact her potential and her hype. And just to be clear, I do feel that there's more value on that Priscila Cachoeira betting line. Taking her at dog odds, I think there's much more value there than targeting Miranda anywhere where her line's around right now. If Miranda comes all the way down to the low 200s, maybe that's something that you want to target then. Monitor that line, but I'm not crazy about taking her anywhere where she's at right now. Now, this is a great fight, especially for being early on a fight card. Matthew Semelsberger and Uros Medic, both of these fighters have been going out, putting on fun performances over the past couple of years. I expect these guys to really clash. Uros Medic, this is a fighter that is very rangy. The ceiling is very high on him. We've seen him go out there and put on some spectacular performances. Of course, dating back to the Dana White's Contender Series performance, his UFC debut. Now, he did have a little hiccup as he's been moving his way through the UFC. He got submitted by Jalen Turner early on, was kind of outclassed in that fight. We know that Jalen Turner is a true talent, even though he's coming off a tough loss, a split decision loss to another legitimate fighter in Dan Hooker. But, I think that Uros Medic is still a very promising fighter, like I said, and the way that he bounced back in that rebound fight after the Turner loss really says something about him. He went out there, got the knockout over Omar Morales, and we know that he has that fight-ending ability. So even though Semelsberger is a guy that has a very solid chin and can take a shot, when you're facing off with a guy like Medic, there's definitely the realistic possibility that he can go out there and lay you out. Medic is a fighter that has a 75% knockout rate, right? So out of his 8 wins, 6 by way of knockout. This is a fighter that goes out there and looks to take you out, has that tricky, rangy southpaw style. Matthew Semelsberger is no slouch to throwing down on the feet. He should be fine there as well. And, I see these guys clashing similarly to what we just saw in the Jeremiah Wells versus Semelsberger fight. I think these guys are going to go at it. Some edges that I like here for Semelsberger, although both men are 30 years old, Semelsberger has, just about double the amount of pro experience. I've seen a little bit more from him down on the mat. Remember earlier we talked about that Jake Matthews fight that Semelsberger took. He really used his grappling to take that fight. And I'm kind of curious if he's going to be able to go out there and solidify some takedowns and maybe try to pull off a submission against Uros Medic. I know that he only has one sub throughout his career, so it's not like he's very polished with his submission skills. But the one lone loss that we've seen from Medic, he did get caught in that submission against Turner, which Turner's whatever. I'm not going to say that Turner is the greatest submission artist, even though he's growing with that skill set. So that's kind of the X factor I see in this fight. But if you want to talk about these guys going out there and throwing down on the feet, which I do believe is a very likely scenario, I think that this fight could play out very closely. I could see this just being an absolute war. Again, I referenced the fact that Medic has that fight-ending ability. He's very diverse with his attacks. He throws all types of things at his opponents: knees, kicks, elbows, punches, all that. I mean, he's a fine-tuned striker. Semelsberger, maybe a little bit more meat and potatoes with his striking, but he does it very well. His boxing's very crisp. He's going to be throwing some nasty 1-2s, and he'll be sitting in the pocket. He'll be trading. He also throws some heavy leg kicks, and he's an athlete. So, I've been a little bit back and forth with which way I'm going to go with this pick here. I do like Medic, and I do like the promise that he shows, but I think that I have to lean Semelsberger's way just based off his overall skill set, some of the overall wrinkles that he's shown, and again, going to the wrestling and whatnot. He's a fighter that's really been rounding his game out. So, yeah, I will take Semelsberger to edge this fight. You take a look at some of the numbers, and the numbers would point towards Medic's way, but I don't really think that sums up exactly who these fighters are. I mean, Medic has some crazy numbers, landing 8.14 strikes per minute, only absorbing 3.76, but these numbers are skewed due to some quick and dominant performances of Medic, so I wouldn't look too much into those. Again, you look at the grappling, we won't even dive too much into that too. I don't think that those numbers really say too much compared to just what we know from how this fight could take place. So I will edge Semelsberger. He's a minus 155 right now over at BetUS. That line's flat, hasn't moved. Over on Jazz Sports, he opened as a minus 145. A little bit of action going towards Semelsberger's way. That might be a sign of what's to come. Maybe some slight movement there. Maybe you see Semelsberger settle in as a minus 170 possibly. He's a really good fighter and a little bit more proven, with that potential wrestling and grappling in his back pocket. Maybe he digs a little bit deeper late in this fight and takes it. I'll take Matthew Semelsberger via decision. I'll say that he grabs 2 of the 3 rounds here, but he has to mix things up. I shouldn't say he has to, because he could strike as well. He might even get just edge out the striking in this fight, but I think that he really should look to mix things up in this fight here. Medic is dangerous if you're just going to sit there and trade with him. Roman Kopylov taking on Claudio Ribeiro in the middleweight division. Remember earlier how we talked about Priscila Cachoeira being a fighter that was really so looked down upon years ago, and then it's kind of cleaned up her act with some performances where she's more respected. Roman Kopylov is the same type of fighter. This was a fighter, at least I'll speak for myself, I thought that he was an absolute slouch, dating to when he got submitted by Carl Robertson. And of course, his resume was just very padded coming into the UFC, so I didn't put too much merit into his resume. And then when I saw the performance he put on against Carl Robertson, I just thought he was a slouch. And then in the Albert Duriov fight, I mean, he was essentially dominated. He was beaten and battered in that fight. Showed a lot of toughness, though. Dug deep late in that fight. There was some ridiculous refereeing in that fight, if you guys remember that. But still, he showed some toughness. He landed his own big shots late in that fight. But, coming off those 2 losses, I thought he was a fighter that was well on his way to parting ways with the UFC after maybe another loss. And I thought that Alessio De Chirico probably would have got the better of him. But he went out there, and then he really started to showcase what he's about. He's 32 years old, but I really feel that he's really came into his own right around this time. Knocks out Alessio De Chirico, goes out there, knocks out Punahele Soriano. He's a rangy fighter, has that southpaw stance as well. He's a well-rounded fighter, and he's tough, and just seems to see things very clearly out there. He's a very accurate striker, and I think that his confidence is at an all-time high right now. He has good cardio, and there's some factors that could play out in this fight that could really lean his way. Claudio Ribeiro is just more of a raw fighter. He definitely carries power. We saw that on Dana White's Contender Series. If you get in the way of his buzzsaw, it will chop you down. But I think that this is a fighter that just has so much more to learn and just needs to refine his overall skill set so much more that you definitely got to lean towards Kopylov's way here. Claudio Ribeiro just went out there and knocked out Joseph Holmes. It did take, took to the second round for him to get that knockout there. Joseph Holmes is a fighter that I don't really have too much respect for as far as his fighting ability, if I'm being quite honest. He's just a little slow, plotty, and I don't really know if he's even a UFC caliber fighter. He was knocked out before that against Abdul Razak Al Hassan. That fight had all the makings to be just a slugfest, and for someone to get knocked out, it's exactly what happened. Unfortunately, it wasn't on the good side for Claudio there. I think that Ribeiro is going to be a threat early on in this fight. And I also think that Kopylov is a threat early on in this fight. Like I said, Claudio is even defensively not the most technically sound. And he'll go out there and he'll look to land these wild hooks, and his chin will be there to be tagged as well. But more importantly, I just feel that Kopylov will be the better mixed martial artist here. You got to lean his way. He'll be at about a 2-inch reach disadvantage. I'm not really worried about that. He's slightly shorter. I mean, Ribeiro has a solid frame for the division, but Kopylov is a big dude as well. And he's just the more refined fighter right now. And he's a fighter that has really gained a lot of momentum behind him based off his last 2 performances. So, yeah, I'm on Kopylov for sure. Now, check this line out on my bookie. He opens as a -208. This is one of the most spastic lines I've ever seen throughout a 4 or 5 day period, just jumping back and forth from that -222 to 232 betting lines. Finally smooths out for a day. And now even dips more so, though. Dips over to the -240 range. Kopylov is a pretty big favorite here. And again, it's just interesting just that when you think about some of the lines that were next to his name not too long ago, those 2 performances that he just went out there and put out gain that respect. And it's understandable why he's a favorite like that. Ribeiro has some big question marks. It's a little dangerous when you understand that Ribeiro is a fighter that is 31 years old, has 14 pro fights, but still a fighter that's learning. And if he refines himself a little bit more, he does have the potential to be a dangerous, legitimate threat. But right now, he's just a little bit too raw for me. I'll take the more refined Roman Kopylov to get the job done here. And you take a look at Ribeiro's losses. He's lost by KO, sub, and decision. I mean, how does he lose this fight? I think it could definitely go a couple different ways. It's really hard to put your finger on it. I mean, Ribeiro's kind of a tough dude. I know he was knocked out by Al Hassan, but Al Hassan carries some serious power. I'll say that, I don't know, man, maybe a late finish for Kopylov, maybe a 2nd or 3rd round late finish here. I'll kind of trend that way, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if it goes towards a decision loss for Ribeiro as well. All right, so that's the way I'm going with that. We got one of the Bonfim brothers throwing down on this card. We have the younger brother, Gabriel Bonfim. I've said since we saw these guys burst on the scene on Dana White's Contender Series that Gabriel, in my opinion, is the more promising of the 2 brothers. Not that I don't think that Ismail still has a promising UFC career, but Gabriel, the undefeated younger brother, this is a fighter that really stands out to me in the welterweight division here. He has a nice test in front of him. Trevin Giles is no joke. He's on a 2-fight winning streak. Giles is a well-rounded fighter. But there's some things that do favor Bonfim with this matchup, which we're going to dive into here in a second. Again, though, Gabriel Bonfim, only 25 years old, has 14 pro fights. He's been fighting from a very young age. He turned pro very, very young. He is a fighter that has 10 of his 14 victories via submission, but he's also a fighter that can definitely strike. One thing I noticed when I watched Gabriel Bonfim's performances, I mean, it's really a treat to watch. But this is a guy that's uber confident in his striking defense. He just misses strikes, just by mere inches. He's very confident in his distance management, and you'll see some shots just stop short of his chin and his nose, or just kind of glance off. And it's a little bit nerve-wracking, right, if you're backing him at times, because you understand with 4-ounce gloves and just a little bit of a difference in range, and you're talking about him maybe taking a shot to the chin, but he sees things very well, and then he'll capitalize on those those errors from his opponents as they just miss. He'll capitalize, maybe trying to get the fight down to the mat, pull off a sub or whatnot, or again using his own striking to counter. He's a very, very talented fighter, but Trevin Giles is a talented striker. And there's definitely a realistic possibility that he can go out there and land the mark. Now, one thing that favors Bonfim here is that realistically, Trevin Giles hasn't really gone out there and used his striking to finish anybody for a long time. You got to date back all the way, I think, to the Bevan Lewis fight, which was a long time ago. Other than that, I mean, he's been getting the job done via decision. So I don't see him getting a decision victory over Bonfim here. I think that Bonfim will prove to be the much better overall fighter. If Giles wants to use his wrestling, which he has some pretty solid wrestling, Bonfim will get the better of those grappling exchanges. He'll use his jiu-jitsu, and he will be the better fighter. On the feet, I think that Bonfim is more explosive, more athletic. I think he gets the better of those as well. So I'm kind of feeling that Giles needs to land a fight-impacting shot here and shake things up, which if you think back to Ismail Bonfim, when he just lost, his brother lost, he got hurt, right? He got finished, and it wasn't his night there. And sometimes that's what happens. It's the fight game, 4-ounce gloves. Again, you're out there sparring and going tit for tat in the gym, but when you step into the octagon in a legit fight and guys are putting big time power and fight ending ability into what they're doing, it shakes things up. So I do believe that Giles will bring the fight here, but overall, I think that Bonfim is just a better fighter anywhere this fight goes. He has a very promising career in front of him. Just like I said, he's the more promising Bonfim brother. He has he has more potential to maybe push towards the title, and we keep an eye on him, and I have him winning this fight. He'll be at a 2-inch reach disadvantage here, even though he's almost an inch taller. Giles has a nice frame. Again, I don't want to disrespect Giles here. I think that he's a very good fighter. We could just take a look at some of the work he's been doing. He's coming off a victory over Preston Parsons, an underrated fighter. The Lewis Kosi fight, not that high on the Kosi brothers. It's funny that he's matched up with another brother duo in the UFC, right? You got the Bonfim brothers, the Kosi brothers. I think the Bonfim brothers are more refined and they're better fighters. And then you want to talk about somebody getting knocked out. We also need to mention that he was knocked out himself. But you take a look at the level of competition. Michael Morales and Dricus du Plessis, high caliber fighters in the division. That we know that now. And then he did squeak out a victory against Roman Dolidze. It was debatable, but he did get the job done. It was a close fight. Roman Dolidze, a tough fighter. I think that was a different version of Roman, but let's give Giles some credit there. I still don't think that he'll be able to implement the same type of tactics that he did in that fight against Roman against Bonfim. I don't think that will play out well for him if it's just a grueling fight and they're grappling and they're trading and this and that. I think that Bonfim will be ahead of all those types of exchanges. That's just what I've seen from him. He's just lightning quick and he's talented. So yeah, I got Bonfim getting the job done here. I'm gonna say that he gets the finish. I mean, it would be hard not to pick Gabriel to get a finish here. I mean, this is a fighter that has 91. Excuse me, he has 11 of his 14 victories have come by way of finish. Majority of them by sub. Trevin Giles submitted twice out of his 4 losses. I would lean more towards a submission victory. I think that Bonfim has shown that he is very, very sharp down there. I'll take Bonfim by a second round submission victory here. I think that they go to war and maybe somebody gets hit with the big shot, but at the end of the day, I think that Bonfim will use those grappling skills to pull this fight off one way or another. Bonfim right now is a minus 312 favorite on my bookie. He opened as a minus 285, a little bit of up and down there, up to back to minus 277 and whatnot, and then you see that dip. And I do expect Bonfim to be somewhere in the minus 300 range, kind of lower. I don't expect it to get too high, like a minus 350, 360, 370, like that type of line. I think it will stay under the 350 line or right around there because people will respect Giles as well, and they'll understand he's a good fighter. He checks off a lot of boxes, but Gabriel will be a step ahead. And do I see value on a minus 312 line? Could be a little risky. We saw that with his brother just recently. Could be a little risky. It's a potential parlay piece, but I'm kind of on the fence with that. I mean, I do respect Giles' ability, and I would maybe want it 285 or lower. Maybe you hope for another dip the other way, which I don't expect, or maybe you should have been on it earlier. Maybe you're better off just kind of watching that fight and enjoying it. Or, like we said, maybe you target that submission prop. If you can get some value on a submission line prop, that's not a horrible idea as well. We got some flyweight action here. CJ Vergara taking on Vinicius Salvador. Vinicius Salvador, still only 26 years old, definitely learning on the job. We saw him taste defeat in his UFC debut, and that was coming off that big knockout victory that he had against Shannon Ross. In reality, when you look at Shannon Ross right now, I mean, his stock went down in a major way with some of his performances. So that victory there doesn't look as good, especially when you understand that Shannon Ross could have easily won that fight if he would have slowed the pace down and just used his grappling and fought a little bit with a higher fighter IQ. And then in his UFC debut, which again, I'm still high on Salvador's boxing skills and some of his quick twitch ability, but even the fighter IQ too. And in the Victor Altamirano fight, fighting a little bit lackadaisical at times and just kind of let that fight slip out of his hands. I thought that was a fight that he really should have took. He started off strong and just kind of faded as that fight went on, and let Altamirano take that fight with his volume. On the other hand, you got CJ Vergara, who's not the most physically imposing fighter, but he's a fighter that's well-rounded. He's a gamer. That's the best way I could describe him. He's a gamer type of guy, extremely confident. He's going there, going out there and looking to start you. We saw him have a big performance on Dana White's Contender Series as well. He had a big knockout victory there. I also believe that he's somewhat of a well-rounded fighter. I think that he can rain some ground and pound down on you, down on the mat, using his wrestling. And real quick, so he had that quick knockout against Bruno Correa on Dana White's Contender Series, lost to Ode Osborne in his UFC debut. Ode is a talented dude. Bounced back with a close split decision victory over Cledson Rodriguez, one of the true studs of the division. And then he was submitted by Tatsuro Taira, but was able to make it to the second round. You guys know Taira is one of the top up-and-comers in the division. And then he bounced back with a knockout victory over Daniel Lacerda, who trains over there with Du Bronx and them. So I think that Vergara is coming in here with a lot of confidence. I think that he'll have a higher fighter IQ in this fight. I think that he'll push the pace a little bit. Vinicius Salvador, on the other hand, will have that rangy, scrappy boxing style. He's very quick twitch. He'll have his hands low, and he'll look to counter and whatnot. And I think he could have some success here. And I think that he's live to knock anybody out. I think he has that type of fight-ending ability when he's throwing from the hip like that. I mean, it only takes one shot. But I'm willing to say I got Vergara here. I like Vergara. I'm a little disappointed with the way that Vinicius finished up that last fight. I know he's putting in work at American Top Team and whatnot. I know he's only 26 years old, and there's a lot more room for growth. But I still think that right now Vergara is the fighter that's a little bit more refined. So that's why I edge him here. Salvador will have a 2.5-inch reach advantage. He is about an inch taller. Like I said, a little bit more rangy, but he doesn't necessarily use that range in the greatest way. I mean, he's not the best at like sitting on the outside and really outpointing and using his leg kicks. He's not the most technically sound defensively, and I think that Vergara can make this fight ugly, and I think that he could rise to the occasion here. I don't say it with an overwhelming amount of confidence, but like I said, Vergara is a very game fighter. So on my bookie, Vergara opened up as a -181. He's now a -175. So the line trending towards Vinicius Salvador's way. But if it's going to open up with that type of line, it's understandable because that is kind of a high line. I think that this fight should be capped a little bit closer. We take a look over at Jazz Sports. He was a -174. He's now a -176. So let me see if I can find something else that's a little bit worth noting. But he's settling in right around that -180 line. On Bovada, he opened up as a -180. He's now -174, 176. And I think that line probably will settle in right around that -170 line on Vergara, which I still would say is a little high for my liking. I think that Vinicius is live to potentially show up and make this a closely contested match. He's, like I said, he's young. He's working on some things. If his head's there and he's actually learning and going back to the gym and learning from his mistakes and then capitalizing on those, learning from those experiences and going in there and changing some things up, he can definitely keep this fight very close. But overall, right now, I got Vergara. I would like Vergara like as a -150. I don't know if you'll be able to get that, monitor that line, but if you can get him down -150 potentially, that's probably where you want the line. Oh, and I'll take Vergara to win a decision here. I'm going to say he wins a decision. Vinicius is pretty tricky and pretty durable. You can take a look at his losses. He's lost 5 times, 2 knockouts, 2 subs, 1 decision. But I have a feeling that it'll be a grueling fight. But I think he digs a little deep and probably loses as a decision there. Here he is, the Black Beast, Derrick Lewis, stepping back in there, taking on Marcos Rogério de Lima, a fighter that's really been surging as of recently. Sorry to repeat myself here once again, but another fighter that had a shaky start to their UFC career and has really settled things. Marcos has settled in to be a legitimate fighter in the heavyweight division, and that ranking's coming next to his name relatively soon, if you ask me. Derrick Lewis, 38 years old, both men 38 years old, but at very different points in their career, if you ask me. Derrick Lewis, maybe some distractions outside the cage. We know that even when he was younger and working his way to that title shot and all that, he's a fighter that has had maybe a lack of what's the word? Not confidence, just a lack of motivation at times, right? He's struggled with eating junk food. I mean, imagine what he's doing these days with all the money that he has and just kind of knowing that he's not really going to push towards a title shot ever again. He's just collecting checks. I mean, I'm sure he's sneaking off, getting some McDonald's and whatnot. And, some of his performance as of recently are very, very suspect. When he gets hit with some big shots, he tends to kind of just collapse in there. or just kind of break down. And then on the other hand, Rogério de Lima is the opposite type of fighter. This is a fighter that's had some of those performances way early on and now has just looked to be the best version of himself. We know that he's been refining his skill set over at American Top Team in Coconut Creek for a long time, and I think that it's paid dividends. I mean, you just take a look at some of the performances that he's had as of recently. So some big-time W's. Just took out Waldo Cortez Acosta using his grappling in that fight. Submitted Andrei Arlovsky. Had the loss to Blagoy-Ivanov. But before that, victories over Ben Rothwell. Dominated Maurice Green with his grappling. And then the Alexander Romanov loss. That was probably a different version of Romanov. Romanov, I don't know, man. He's gained a lot of weight. He's not the same fighter. He went out there and knocked out Ben Saucely before that. Was submitted by Stefan Struve. He had some early success in that fight, but kind of flaked out. Those are some of the performances that I'm talking about that were kind of questionable, right? He was submitted quite often. Submitted by OSP, Stefan Struve, Romanov. Those are some of the earlier fights in his career. Submitted by Nikita Krylov, even dating back to 2015. But he has refined his skill set. Like I said, he carries some serious power, especially early on. He'll go out there and he'll look to start you, throw some big energy into his shots. And I worry that if the Black Beast is caught with the shot early on, that we start to see him, in typical Derrick Lewis fashion, kind of wobble up and lean towards the cage. And yeah, he might look to throw a big ass counter hook and try to catch Rogério de Lima coming in. But I'm not really sure I'm willing to bank on him landing that. And I think that de Lima will continue to push that pressure on the Black Beast. And I think that eventually Derrick Lewis will kind of crumble in there. I mean, that's just kind of the way I'm going. I mean, he was just submitted by Sergey Spivak in the first round, knocked out by Sergey Pavlovich before that, knocked out against Tai Tuivasa before that. That was kind of a war there going to the second round. And then he had that knockout over Chris Daukaus, was picked apart by Cyril Gahn and kind of collapsed and gave in that fight as well. Before that, he had that crazy knee land on Curtis Blades, knocked out Alexei Oleinik before that. Listen, I understand that Derrick Lewis is extremely dangerous. Even now, he's extremely dangerous, and he could definitely go out there and get a knockout victory. I think he's the king of the heavyweight division as far as knockouts go. I think he has the most ever, and he's definitely live to get a knockout here. But I think if he doesn't land that knockout, I think it's much more likely we see Pereira win this fight in a variety of ways, whether he gets the knockout victory, the TKO victory, whether he hurts Lewis, goes down to the mat, pulls off a submission as Lewis just kind of looks to give the fight up, or if this fight goes to a decision, which I'm not really sure if that's going to happen, but if it goes to a decision, I see that Pereira being the fighter that gets on top of Lewis at some point in time. Lewis is hard to keep down there. He'll probably work his way back up and whatnot, but this fight kind of leans towards Pereira's way, in my opinion. He's just a more well-rounded fighter, and I'll be rooting for Derrick Lewis, most likely. If I don't have action on this fight or whatnot, I'll be rooting for Lewis, one of my favorite fighters of all time, but it's really hard to back him with the way that he's been looking. If he's really, really motivated and comes in ready to go to war and ready to dig deep, I would favor Derrick Lewis in a spot like this, but I don't know. I just don't know if he's there mentally. I really don't. I could expect to see him maybe putting the gloves down in the canvas in the near future. I mean, he's collecting these checks, and I think that he's put in that work for years. This is a guy that has 37 pro fights, and again, he has 2.2 million followers on IG. This is a guy that's just living life right now and has put in the work to be in that position. So he'll have a 4-inch reach advantage. He's 2 inches taller. He's the bigger dude, even though Marcos is a big dude as well. It really just depends what level of motivation Lewis had going into this fight. And even then, still, Marcos is dangerous. He's fine-tuned right now. Give me Marcos Rogério de Lima to win this fight. And I'm going to tell you that he gets the finish here. I'm going to say he gets the finish by the time... I'm going to favor that he gets the job done in the first round. I think that they go to war, and I think that Lewis crumbles. Maybe it goes to the second, but I'll favor a first-round finish for Rogério de Lima here. Take a look at some of the striking numbers. I mean, take them for what you will. Those numbers don't really matter to me that much because it just takes one from these guys to end this fight, right? Lewis landing 2.54, it doesn't matter. One of his strikes is the difference, or is as powerful and is more impactful in a fight than 10 strikes per minute from other fighters. So I don't care about none of this. Grappling wise, whatever. We're not going to go into that too much. You guys know what we're looking at when we look at this fight. So let's take a look at the betting line here. A very close line. We'll take a look at Derrick Lewis. Derrick Lewis right now at plus 106. He was a minus 119 on my bookie back on June 24th. Now he is a plus 106 dog. So we've seen that line just slowly trending the other way and then kind of dipping a good amount there to that plus 106 line. That's where I expected that line to be. I definitely believe that you'll see a plus sign next to Derrick Lewis's name, unless we see that there's some information that comes out and he's talking about how motivated he is and how he's coming out here from Marcos Rogério de Lima's head and this is his fight. If we see that type of motivation, you hear him at the press conference, maybe we see the line dip maybe the other way. But if we just see the old Derrick Lewis just having fun at the press conference, going through the motions, having fun out there, you're going to see Marcos Rogério de Lima settle in at like a minus 140 favorite, I think. So I got Marcos Rogério de Lima to get that finish in the first round. Now, if you remember, after Michel Pereira's last victory, and an amazing fight, really, against Santiago Ponzinibbio, a fun fight to watch. We did some fight matchmaking after that fight, and the fight I was calling for was him against Stephen Thompson. So I was so happy to see this fight finally be matched up. Two diverse and electrifying strikers. I mean, these guys are so unorthodox. Stephen Thompson with that traditional karate style, but still, I mean, just does so many wild things out there. And then, of course, Pereira. I mean, this guy is an absolute just ball of energy on the feet. This fight has the makings to be such a fun fight. I'm really excited for it. Now, I'll tell you what. Stephen Thompson is coming off that victory against Kevin Holland. I had the luxury to watch that fight live, right? So that was great to watch Thompson take out my arch nemesis there, in person. But on a serious note, that fight, that was a questionable performance by Holland, in my opinion. Holland did agree just to do that striking type of affair with Thompson. But even then on the feet, I was surprised that at the way it played out, I thought that Holland would have had a little bit more to offer offensively. I guess you can chalk that up to the skill set of Wonderboy, but I'm still questioning Wonderboy's defense a little bit. He always has his hands down. We've seen him knocked out. We've seen him finished. I mean, it's so hard to get that picture of what Anthony Pettis did to him back in the day. And then even recently, he's definitely had some question marks with his grappling being dominated down on the mat by Gilbert Burns and Bilal Muhammad. Now, Pereira is not really known for going out there and just being a wrestler and using his grappling, but I actually do believe that he's more well-rounded than some people give him credit for. Before the Ponzinibbio victory, he had a victory over Andre Fiallo, Nico Price, Chaos Williams, absolutely played around with Zelim Amadayov. And then again here, you see a loss to Diego Sanchez. That was not a loss, right? That was a DQ. So that was another fight that he should have won there. And then the lone loss he had in the octagon here was against Tristan Connolly. And that was the fight where he broke down late in that fight. But ever since that loss, he's really looked to have rebounded nicely with his conditioning and digging deep in fights. So I think there's a couple edges that Pereira has here. And if he looks to use his grappling here, I could see him getting on top of Thompson and working some ground and pound or controlling some rounds there if he fights an intelligent fight. Now, if he wants to put on a show for the fans and wants to go out there and just go tit for tat with Wonderboy, obviously that's going to be harder to do. But I'll tell you what, as they go tit for tat, I favor the durability and the chin of Pereira much more than I do of Wonderboy. When you take into consideration the age of Wonderboy, he's in his 40s now. And I understand that he hasn't been getting knocked out consistently. I know maybe I'm overhyping that Anthony Pettis knockout, but when you take into consideration the way he keeps his hands low, the age that he's at, the years of training and just the years of putting damage on his body, whether it's sparring in the gym or fights, I do believe that he's going to be prone to being knocked out often in the near future. If he wants to continuously go out there and fight, that's what the word is. This is a guy that he's not looking to retire. Thompson's looking to continue fighting for years. He's just a warrior. That's how he's built. And I think you're going to start to see him get knocked out a little bit. He's so confident in his striking, and he doesn't necessarily right now have that fight-ending ability so much. He's more of at this point in time, you see him really just putting it on his opponents like he did against Holland, just mixing things up and putting that onslaught. So, if you're backing him, yeah, he might be winning those exchanges and scoring points, but it only takes one shot, and he's in there, he's trading, hands are low. It's only going to take one shot. So I do believe that we're going to see Thompson start to get knocked out a little bit now as he's getting old, or as he is old, and he's in his 40s, and he's going to continue to want to go to war and want to fight these young up-and-coming fighters. And I think he could run into some trouble. Again, you think about the X factor of the takedown. Maybe Pereira fights an intelligent fight and does some of that. And again, Pereira is just a tricky fighter in his own right, man. The movement is spectacular. A lot of people thought that he was just a gimmick. Early on, I thought he was a little bit more of a gimmick fighter with the way he was moving. No, he's a fighter that he'll really go out there and outclass his opponents, which we saw again in that Zelim Amadayov. I know Amadayov is a slouch, but what he went out there and did just showed you the level of skill set that he has on the feet, the movement, the way he was using his footwork and just moving around, sliding out of strikes and then slapping him. I mean, it was impressive. And, I am saying that I think there's more ways Pereira can get the job done here, and I'm going to actually back him. So even though I just took Stephen Thompson against Holland, which I believe he was a dog and all that, I'm not backing him here. He's 40 years old, and I have some question marks about where he's at right now. You take a look at the numbers. Both these fighters really putting on impressive stats as far as the offensive production compared to the defensive production as well. With them together, both of these guys, landing on their opponents almost 2 more significant strikes compared to what they absorb. In Thompson's case, about almost 1.5. So not bad numbers at all. And I will take Michel Pereira to get the job done here. And I think there's potential he lands a knockout. I think there's potential he might dominate with the grappling, and I think there's even potential that he just wins a decision in a fight where they go back and forth, but Pereira can land his own clean shots, and he's younger, he's fresher. He hasn't fought in about a year, but he had a good performance in that last fight, 15-minute war with a veteran in Santiago Ponzinibbio. So, things are going good for him right now. Where Stephen Thompson, things are going good with the Holland win, but I got some question marks, all right? So let's take a look at the betting line here. You got Michel Pereira opening as a plus 177 underdog on my bookie. That line coming down. Now he's a plus 164. So action coming in on him, which I think is warranted. I mean, I don't know how much or how many of you guys are confident in taking Stephen Thompson at a minus 232 line, even a minus 212 line. Do you trust him at this age? I understand that he is such a polished striker and is one of the best strikers that we've ever seen. That's what George St. Pierre said back in the day, right? He's the best striker that he's ever trained with. I understand all that, but you have to take all things into consideration here, analyze it, everything as a whole, and I think it's hard to back him at over a 2-1 favorite. That's how I feel about it. So give me Michel Pereira. I'm gonna say that Pereira gets a finish here. I'm gonna say that he lands a big shot in the second round and gets a knockout over the aging Stephen Thompson. How about that? Michael Chiesa taking on my arch nemesis Kevin Holland, the Trailblazer, 30 years old, maturing into the prime of his career here. So this is a huge fight for Kevin Holland. Big fight for Michael Chiesa as well. He's put in work for years, and he's definitely at the latter half of his career. But Kevin Holland has a lot to prove here. Still has that momentum with his name and whatnot. We talked about the loss he took to Stephen Thompson. Some questionable fighter IQ throughout that fight, questionable performance by him, but bounced back very well against Santiago Ponzinibbio. I thought Ponzinibbio was up early on, or having some success, I would say, especially coming in as a dog. But that's the thing with Kevin Holland, man. You could start off early on him. I think he's a little bit of a slow starter, and then he starts to pick things up, and he lands those big shots, man. We saw that in the Alex Oliveira fight. Oliveira took that first round, and then was finished right in the beginning of the second round. The Tim Means fight, I mean, he pretty much dominated that fight from the get-go, but the Santiago Ponzinibbio fight, once he gets going, and then again, he has that fight-ending ability, and I definitely think that he's live to land a knockout blow on Michael Chiesa, kind of an aged fighter. I do believe Chiesa still has more to give to the fight game, and I think that he's definitely game for this matchup here, coming off a loss to Vicente Luque and Sean Brady, two solid grapplers, I would say. Although Vicente Luque also a nasty striker too, but a very well-rounded fighter. Got caught there in that Darce choke, I believe, in the first round. The Sean Brady fight didn't go his way. But before that, Michael Chiesa had a very, very solid performance against Neil Magny. If you guys remember, I think that was a main event match there that took place over in Europe or something like that, over in Asia. And he went out there and dominated Neil Magny. Not a lot of people go out there and dominate Neil Magny the way he did. I understand Magny's been getting up there in age and whatnot, but Magny's a well-rounded fighter, and that version of Michael Chiesa is a dangerous version, especially in a matchup against Kevin Holland, who has questionable grappling or takedown defense or whatnot. You think about the victory over RDA. Anytime you can go out there and get a victory over Rafael Dos Anjos, that's legitimate. RDA is one of the most proven, most well-rounded fighters throughout the last decade, man. RDA is a stud. He went out there and got the better of him there. I understand it was kind of, depending on how you look at RDA, if he's a legitimate lightweight or welterweight still, I think he's proven to be legitimate at both weight classes. That's just a solid victory. Submitted Carlos Condit. Now, if you want to talk about some of his hiccups, man, The Kevin Lee fight, a little bit controversial. It was a little bit of an early stoppage there, but still got his back taken. Got submitted by Anthony Pettis as well. And Pettis' career definitely went downhill, trending over to the PFL. And, Michael Chiesa has questionable performances, but when he does put it together, he's a dangerous fighter. He could definitely take advantage of this stylistic matchup if he can wear out Holland and use his grappling and try to make this fight play out similarly to what we saw when Brunson defeated Kevin Holland, using the wrestling and whatnot. If he fights an intelligent fight, I think that's a very realistic possibility. All in the meantime, Kevin Holland will be throwing fight-ending shots towards Chiesa's way, and I think that there's a very realistic possibility that the Chiesa will not like that, and if one of those lands the right way, we might see Chiesa crumble. Another aging fighter, 35 years old, and in the welterweight division, the Trailblazer is going into his prime, and he's just the more fierce, fighter right now, in my opinion. But that being said, I'm gonna let you guys know right now, and I'm trying to be completely transparent with you guys. I think this fight is still a very close matchup, and I like the ability that Chiesa potentially has to take this fight down to the mat and use his grappling. We saw Chimaev just pull off that Darrius on Holland pretty much immediately. I know Chimaev is a whole different animal. That was a last-minute matchup still, and I know that Holland's still working on his wrestling and grappling still, but I'm going to say that Chiesa digs deep here and uses his grappling to take this fight. I think it's very close. I've been on the fence with which way I want to go. You guys know Holland's my arch nemesis, and a lot of you guys like to go in on me on IG when I pick against him, and it's fun. It's fun to me, and I've had some recent success. I've also, obviously, Holland's been a little bit up and down as of recently, so sometimes you guys are hitting up the comment section, and I love it. And I want some of that energy going on this upcoming weekend. So yeah, I'm picking against Holland. And when Chiesa maybe pulls off a sub, I get to laugh about it a little bit. And you know what? If I lose, I like when you guys come on the attack. So come bring that onslaught onto me. Hit me up in the comment section here. Catch me on Instagram at MMAFortuneteller_ and hit me up with the dirty comments. I love it. All right. So I will take Michael Chiesa to get the job done. So let's go take a look at the betting line and see what we're talking about here. Michael Chiesa is going to be the dog, which is to be expected. He opened as a plus 143. He's now a plus 126. So action coming towards Michael Chiesa's way on my bookie. And I think that has a little bit to do with people understanding that Chiesa can grapple, and he has that avenue to potentially take the fight over like that. So, I'm sure people will be on Holland as well. Maybe you might see that line start to dip back the other way. People like Holland. He's a big name and he's a dangerous fighter. But I like Michael Chiesa to get the job done here. Potentially getting a sub, but I think I'll favor him winning a decision, kind of using his wrestling to take over this fight. So give me Chiesa. That will be a fun one. Now, is this the people's main event? I don't know. You guys comment below. Let me know. Maybe at one point in time it would have been, but it's hard to say it's the people's main event with the way that Tony Ferguson has been looking and the way that I think a lot of us think this fight's going to go. The performance that Tony just had against Nate Diaz where he broke down and got submitted, that was tough. Some of the other losses I think I could take a little bit more so than that one, though. That was a bad look. I understand that he was losing to some of the best fighters in the division and he was getting out wrestled and whatnot, but I don't know. He looked kind of old in that matchup against Nate there. So always been a huge fan of Tony Ferguson's. Not always, actually. I shouldn't say that. I wasn't a fan of his when he was on The Ultimate Fighter. I thought he was a little bit of a nut. Remember he was talking about that one fighter's kid and whatnot. I thought that was super cringeworthy. But he redeemed himself just the way that he put in work throughout the years in the octagon. And you understand that he's just a little bit of a live wire. So, I've forgiven him for that. And I've always been a fan since then, of watching him fight and whatnot. So, when you think about some of the performances that he's put on, I don't think I could think of another fighter that's more of just a free-flowing type of fighter where he can just go anywhere. You could take him down. He's dropping elbows. He's so fluid and diverse with his strikes. When he was in his prime, man, he was really something else. You guys know it's a shame that we never saw him fight Khabib back then, but I do believe Khabib probably would have neutralized him with the grappling and would have won that fight anyways. But Tony Ferguson might need to hang it up after this loss here against Bobby Green. Bobby Green, on the other hand, is a fighter that has gotten better with time, if you ask me. Even though he's not that young, I think that he is the best version of himself that we've ever seen. And that's even saying that with him just coming off a recent knockout loss as well. We know that he's willing to engage in a war. He's looking to go out there and knock you out. He might get hit with his own shot. He got knocked out by Dober. The Islam Makhachev took that fight on short notice. That is what it is. Had a victory over Nasrat Haqparast. That's a big win there. the knockout victory over Ally Quinta. That was probably the best version that we've ever seen from him. And that was coming off a closely contested match against Rafael Fiziev, where he had a lot of success throughout that fight as well. It was a very close fight. Maybe even some people had him winning that fight. So, you know, a lot of impressive performances from him as of recently. And then the Jared Gordon fight, he was looking pretty good as long as that fight lasted. And, you know, he ended up hitting Gordon with that headbutt knockout. And this might be an unpopular opinion, but, you know, when fighters clash heads, I still give the fighter that's landing the more impactful, how would I say that, right? As they clash heads, whoever's landing more impactfully with them clashing the heads, I still give them a little bit of credit. I feel like you're a little bit more aware in with the position of your head and whatnot. And, you know, you shouldn't be caught with a headbutt. I understand it could happen, but you shouldn't be dipping in with your chin open like that and getting clashed with the head. I mean, you got to be more technically sound there too. And, you know, a nice headbutt knockout victory there for Bobby Green. If this was like the old days, when the UFC first burst on the scene, remember all those violent, bloody headbutts we used to see? That would have been one of the best knockouts that we've ever seen. Imagine a step-in headbutt like that. You know, but on a serious note, Bobby Green's quick. He's electrifying. He's super well-rounded. I don't think that Tony Ferguson's going to be able to get this fight down to the mat. I think that they trade on the feet, and I think Bobby Green's going to break him down, bloody him up. And I just don't have much faith in Tony Ferguson holding up again. He's been finished now, 5 fights in a row. The Nate Diaz fight we talked about, the up kick, the front kick that Michael Chandler landed on him, kicking his head off his shoulders, then dominated by Oliveira, Darrius, and Gaethje. Gaethje took Tony Ferguson's soul in that fight. If you guys want to really talk about it, okay? The damage that he inflicted on Tony Ferguson, I said it after that fight happened. I was like, I've never seen someone get defeated like that. It was worse than just getting knocked out like he did against Chandler. He was picked apart for so long. The brain damage that he took in that fight, you remember he was shaking, he was blinking his eyes and like shaking himself, and he was like kind of turning away and walking, like trying to scatter away before the referee came in and stopped the fight. I think it was Herb Dean, and it was a warranted stoppage, and it was just like his brain was like twitching off. It was like a short fuse, and I think that ever since then, he's just not the same fighter, and it's unfortunate. He's also old too. He's 39 years old. Bobby Green's going to go out here, and he's going to get the finish. I think he's going to get the finish. He's going to get a TKO on him here. Bobby Green opened as a minus 303. He's now a minus 333, around 344. About a 3.5 favorite against Ferguson there. And I don't think that that's that bad of a line. I think that he can balloon up to a minus 500, a 5-1 favorite here. I don't know. I mean, people love Tony Ferguson. They respect him. So maybe we see some respect on him in that sense. Bobby Green knocked out a little bit ago against Drew Dober. Drew Dober is a different type of fighter, man. We're talking about an elite striker that's still in his fighting prime to an extent. So, yeah, I got Bobby Green to get the job done here via TKO. I don't think this fight passes the second round. Alex Pereira makes his light heavyweight debut here against the former champion in Jan Błachowicz. We got the number 3 ranked light heavyweight fighter taking on the number 2 middleweight ranked fighter here. Of course, if Alex Pereira can go get a victory this upcoming Saturday, he will have a number next to his name in the light heavyweight division as well. I think there's no denying that. This is such a tough task for Alex Pereira in his light heavyweight debut. I mean, again, you're talking about a former champion, one of the most underrated fighters I think to have ever done it in the light heavyweight division. I really do believe that. Błachowicz, the only other man to ever have a victory over Israel Adesanya, him and Alex Pereira there. So this is a fun matchup, right? And if Alex Pereira can get the job done, we know what fight they're setting up. If Izzy gets the victory over Sean Strickland, which that's not finalized yet, but if he does, this would be the matchup in the light heavyweight division. So Izzy could try to unify the belt, or excuse me, not unify the belt, be a double champ, right? So, listen, where should I start off? I mean, Alex Pereira has the luxury of having one of the legends in his corner in Glover Teixeira, a guy that has a victory over Jan Błachowicz, which was relatively recent as well. He went out there and got the submission victory in the second round against him, completely outclassed him. That was a very suspect performance by Błachowicz. That was a weird one. But I don't see Pereira having any type of similar success with that fighting style. He ain't going out there and taking Błachowicz down to the mat and subbing him. We know what he has to do. He has to keep the fight standing and try to knock Błachowicz out or try to outstrike him. Błachowicz is a horrific matchup for Pereira, and I'll tell you why. First off, Błachowicz grappling is very much underrated. We saw what he went out there and did to Israel Adesanya when Izzy bumped up in the light heavyweight division. We saw him get multiple takedowns on him. The timing of his takedowns are very good. And I think that he has major potential to go out here and take down Pereira with ease and dominate him down on that mat. I think there's a very realistic possibility that can happen. We haven't seen Alex Pereira really tested in that field in his mixed martial arts career. I mean, if you want to talk about the Andreas Michailidis fight, in that fight, I mean, Michailidis had him against the cage, won the first round, didn't do much with it, just kind of held him there. But obviously I don't hold my fellow Greek brother Andreas Michailidis to the same level that I do of a Błachowicz. Błachowicz is a much naturally larger man. He's a better grappler, has better offensive wrestling. And then again, if you look at the resume of Pereira, where has he been tested with his grappling and his wrestling so far? He has been matched up with strikers. I mean, first off, all the fighters that he faced coming into the UFC, and then he's matched up with Andreas Michailidis. He hit him with that flying knee in the second round, but again, was held against the cage the whole first round. Bruno Silva is a fighter that's more than willing to exchange in a brawl. That's what that was. They threw down Sean Strickland sitting there with his head on a tee, looking to strike. Israel Adesanya, you guys know he's a kickboxer. He's a striker. So you know how that fight was playing out. And when we saw those two men, Israel Adesanya and Alex Pereira, grappling, it was very low level. And I think that Jan Błachowicz is a big step ahead in the grappling department. Now, the one thing Alex Pereira has going for himself, obviously, that's what he's consistently working on. And he has a great guy to teach him that in Glover Teixeira. But I think that he's going to struggle. I think that he's going to get taken down. I really do worry for him there. And then not only that, as dangerous as Alex Pereira is with his striking defense is suspect. He keeps those hands down. He's so aggressive. He's out there looking to knock you out, and he's susceptible to being knocked out in his own right. And we saw that in the Israel Adesanya fight. In my opinion, he was looking more dominant before that fight ended than even in the other fight. I thought he was absolutely picking Izzy apart, was destroying his legs, and had him on the cuffs, finishing him in his own right, had him against the cage, and just, again, dropping your hands, getting overzealous. He got caught with that counter, and I think Polish power is real, and I think that he can go out there and knock out Alex Pereira. All right, so I think that Jan Błachowicz is going to get a finish here. I think he gets a TKO knockout victory. How about that? Whether he mixes in some takedowns here and there, I think he's going to knock Alex Pereira out. I think things are going to get ugly. And Jan Błachowicz, man, this guy throws some heavy leg kicks. He's willing to go shin to shin on you. He is made of steel. And this is a guy that has really fought Father Time, too. I know that Jan Błachowicz is 40 years old, but he's not your typical 40-year-old fighter. And this is the light heavyweight division where you can get away with that a little bit more so. But he's a fighter that's really just aged very nicely. He's aged like fine wine. So, yeah, I got Jan Błachowicz to get the job done here. I think that a lot of you guys are going to kind of wake up to see what the difference is in the light heavyweight division and the difference of the grappling abilities from some of these fighters. I know some of you guys have high hopes for Alex Pereira because when you take a look at the betting line, it's essentially a pick'em line. Even though Jan Błachowicz did open as a minus 156 favorite, that line has dipped down. You see action coming in on Alex Pereira. So again, people are high on him. They think that he's going to be prepared for this opportunity. Yeah, he might get an early knockout, but or might get a knockout at any point in time. I mean, that's how dangerous his striking is. But I like Jan Błachowicz here to get the job done. I'm taking him via TKO. I'll say once again, I don't think this fight leaves the second round. How about that? Hey, you guys, before we jump into this electrifying main event, if you guys are looking to sign up for a new sports book, reach out to me. I'll give you guys my referral link. You sign up through that, you're going to get an added bonus to your account. Not only that, I will give you guys 2 free cards for my official plays. I'll give you guys 2 packages for any cards that you guys want, but you're going to want to kick it off with this event. Trust me on that. All right, guys. If you're interested, shoot me a DM on Instagram or Twitter, or shoot me an email. If you're not interested in signing up for a new sportsbook and you just want my official plays, reach out to me as well. I'll give you some information on that. Here we go. 2 of the most exciting fighters to have ever fought in the UFC. Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje. We mentioned this is a rematch. DP took the first fight in the 4th round where they went to war. I mean, these are the names, man, right? When you think of the most exciting fighters, DP, Justin Gaethje, you got to throw Michael Chandler in the mix right now. It's kind of interesting that the lightweight division just really has those fighters that deliver like that from an entertainment standpoint. DP 34 years old, Gaethje 34 years old. I mean, this fight makes a lot of sense right now. Their names are so big. I think this was a very warranted rematch. At one point in time, this probably wasn't a fight that was on anybody's radar, but right now it just makes a lot of sense. It's going to deliver for the fans. A lot of people are anticipating just watching these big names clash. And then at the end of the day, the victor of this fight will start to really get that momentum to push towards another title shot, right? Of course, both these guys falling short to Khabib. Now Khabib's disciple, training partner Islam Makhachev's holding the belt. He has some business with Charles Oliveira, but let's say he gets past him. You know, the winner of this is going to be in the mix for sure. I mean, DP has made a living of digging so deep late in fights and breaking fighters, right? Just submitted Michael Chandler in the third. Of course, he's been having a lot of success against Conor McGregor, digging so deep against Dan Hooker. That was probably one of the more impressive victories that I've seen from him in a long time. The Hooker fight and the Holloway fight. Of course, then you had the Khabib loss in the mix, but Khabib, I don't need to talk about him. You guys know the deal. The Hooker and Holloway fight, even the Eddie Alvarez knockouts, really had two. The one was like a no contest, was an eye poke, but he was having success early on, breaking Anthony Pettis, knocking out Justin Gaethje. I mean, the list goes on and on. There was that one mishap against Michael Johnson, just made a mistake, got caught with the big shot. Definitely just an error there. I mean, he wins that fight 99 out of 100 times, in my opinion. And then Justin Gaethje, listen, I've been a huge Justin Gaethje fan way back to the World Series of Fighting days, which turned into the PFL and all that. But if you remember him back then, I used to watch him when he was a kid. That's how much of an OG I am as a fight fan. And I remember when he was having his first fights in the World Series of Fighting, the word kind of got out that he was a hot prospect to keep a name on. And he would go out there and just put on the most exciting fights, man. You think about his wars with all these guys, Luis Palomino and all these different guys. I mean, he would get hurt in fights. He would always march forward. You guys know his UFC debut against Michael Johnson, how that went. The thing is, I think that Justin Gaethje right now, with the work that he's been putting in with Trevor Whitman, is the most refined version that we've ever seen of himself. And I think that makes him more dangerous than ever. Even though he's 34 years old, I think he's the most dangerous version of himself that we've ever seen. And he's more of a threat to DP here compared to back in 2018, where Gaethje was just kind of a little bit more sloppy with the striking, a little bit more in that war state of mind, where now I think that he's going to look to be a lot more cerebral and technical in this fight. And there's potential that he could be a big threat, or there is potential that he's a threat to DP here. DP also hasn't been as active as Gaethje recently, really, when you check the numbers. His last fight was in 2022. It's been about about a year and a half or so. Or no, I'm sorry about that. It was at the end of 2022. So it was about 7-8 months ago or whatnot. And then his last fight before that was in 2021. It was about a year in between those two fights where he fought Charles Oliveira. And then, the Conor McGregor fights some of those fights a little bit spaced out. I think that obviously DP is not as active as he has been in the past. Whereas Gaethje just had the loss to Oliveira at towards the middle of 2022, and then just fought more recently. I guess that's the point I'm making. He was just in there recently, right? He just fought 3-4 months ago against Rafael Fiziev and really looked good in that fight. So I guess that's the point I'm making. He was in the cage more recently and really looked good against Fiziev, specifically in that third round. So I think that Gaethje has some momentum going into this fight. DP will have that 2-inch reach advantage, even though Gaethje's a little taller. I think you guys know which way I'm going here. I'm a big fan of DP's. I think that DP will dig a little bit deeper late in this fight. I think he'll be a little bit sharper and a little bit more technical with his boxing skills. I think you could expect to see him, rubbing his fingers through his hair, pulling up his pants, marching forward, and just throwing those sharpshooter straight shots down the pipe. And maybe he gets that late finish again. Do I go late finish for DP? I mean, I think that this fight goes to a decision. I think that Gaethje will be a little bit more cautious, a little bit more technical, and I think that they go to war, but I think that Gaethje survives. I'm going to say DP wins 3 of 2 rounds in this fight. And, my computer's still doing this, man. If anybody knows why these certain videos do that, please. I know somebody said it might be the graphics card. I don't know if that makes sense. I can't find nothing about that, but some videos work, some don't. DP's the man. I'm going to say that he wins once again against Gaethje and works his way towards that potential shot at the title once again. And he's selling hot sauce left and right. I heard the hot sauce is in Walmart these days. And I'm very excited for this fight. Please comment below. Let me know who you guys are taking in that matchup. I got to know. And then we slide over to the betting line where we saw my bookie DP open as a -128. He's now a -138. Not ridiculous movement, but the line is trending towards his way. People just understand that he won the first time around. I think that has something to do with it. Opened as a -137, dipped the other way for a little bit, kind of came back towards his way. And I think that line will settle in right around that way. I don't expect nothing crazy to go on here. I think that DP settles in as like a -140 favorite, -140, 145. I think the closer we get to the fight, we just see a little bit more of a smidge towards his way. Again, people just understand that DP's game. He already has that victory. And, is there value? I think that you could pick your poison here. The line's not crazy. I mean, you could argue that having plus money next to either guy's name obviously puts the value on them. But when you take into consideration that he's already gone out there, got the job done over Gaethje, he's so game, just seems to rise to the occasion and against anybody that's just not, not named Khabib. A couple little hiccups there, but, he goes out there and gets the job done. I got DP to get the job done here, like I said, and I'll say, if you grab him right now at -130, I think that there's decent value there, or it's something you could definitely touch. I like DP to get the job done, and I cannot wait for that fight. All right, guys, that wraps up UFC 291. We're all excited for this fight card. You guys better be hitting me up on Instagram or follow me throughout the week. I'm going to be pumping out a lot of content here. I'm super excited. If you guys want to work with me, like I said, reach out to me. I got some good closing thoughts for you guys as well. Anything else I need to say before we jump into that? Just a great time to be a fight fan. So many big cards coming up, as we mentioned in the intro. Very excited for these big cards coming up, these big pay-per-view cards. We're spoiled as fight fans right now. And as far as my closing thoughts, this is something I was thinking about the other day. You know what I love? I love when you're out and about, whether you're at the park, just exercising, or you're shopping. And I love bumping into good people that kind of give you a smile, or they say hello to you, and you get that little casual, random conversation. I love those types of experiences. And I notice sometimes if I say hi to somebody, and you don't really get it back the way that you want it, or sometimes people are weird, and who knows what's going on with them. Maybe they have anxiety, or sometimes they're just a dick. If you don't get that hi back in certain situations, it can be a little bit of an annoying situation, or kind of rubs you the wrong way. It kind of makes you hesitant to say hi to the next person, right? And I've noticed at times if I've been in a situation like that, then I'll be a little bit more hesitant, and I'll kind of, you see somebody, but maybe you should have kind of extended a little bit out to and say hello, and then next thing you know, you're having a fun little random conversation. But you avoid those, or you miss those opportunities if you kind of let those sour grapes rub you the wrong way and kind of steer you away from doing that. So what I kind of was telling myself, and again, everyone's different. Some of you guys might not even be looking for these types of situations, but I enjoy them. I get something out of them. I love talking to older people too, getting good stories and experiences from them, from their past. I love those types of situations. I had a guy in the gym the other day, an older black fella from Buffalo, and for whatever reason, he just started talking to me, and this guy had so much wisdom, and just had some cool stories, and just started talking to me and just wouldn't let me go there. And I had no problem with it. He was basically following me around the gym as we're working out, and just kept conversating, and we had some good talks, and good dude. And then you bump into him in the future, and you have someone that you kind of can conversate with or whatnot. I like those types of situations. But the point I was making, if you are like me and you enjoy these types of things, you can't let those sour grapes ruin future opportunities to have those experiences, right? So if you bump into those dickheads, like I bumped into a dickhead the other day, him and his girl, I'm at the park walking by them, whatever, and I look up and I'm like, hey, how's it going, real quick, just as I'm walking by, and they're both kind of stale, and they barely say anything, and they kind of look whatever, and they look away, and it's like, you almost want to say something, but at the end of the day, it's like, who cares, right? But you don't know who you're walking by and whatnot, and what they're going through, or sometimes they're just not worth it. But just chalk that up and keep on that positive energy, because you're going to bump into those pleasant people here and there as well, and you're going to get a lot from those conversations. And if you don't have that mindset where you're still trying to do that, you're going to miss those opportunities. So you're going to have a couple swing and misses. And again, if you're not even looking for that, and if you want to stay to yourself, I understand and respect that too, man. Some people aren't looking for that. They're just going through their daily motions. And like I said, the older I've gotten, I've noticed there's been times where I'm not looking for that as much too. When I'm younger, I was, but sometimes I am. You guys know what I'm saying? Like, you're going through different times, and sometimes you're looking for that more so, or not looking for that. But if you are looking for that, I think it's just always a good thing just to be pleasant in general anyway. So it's always nice to say hi to people in those types of situations. So something I was thinking about. I don't know. You guys let me know what your thoughts are on that. But I do enjoy good, random, casual conversations with just strangers, man. Good people. I love meeting good people. But again, the world that we live in these days, you got to be cautious too who you're talking to. And I think that has something to do with the fact that people are a little hesitant at times. So people don't know what you're about. They might think you're a predator or something like that, and sometimes people judge you. I got tattoos and whatnot. So there's definitely people that probably judge me a little bit depending on how they look at me or whatnot. Maybe I intimidate them. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Some people, they see you, they have a couple tattoos and maybe they're a little bit more straight edge. You guys know what I'm saying? Maybe they judge you off something too. So there's always those types of situations going on, but don't let that deter you from great opportunities to talk to certain people. And I even say that, like, with different races, I'll say that as well, right? Sometimes people find themselves maybe not as comfortable reaching out to different races in all types of ways, whether it's a white to an Asian person to a Spanish person, a white to a black person. If you put yourself out there more so, you realize how much similarities you have with all different types of races. There's black people that I've conversated and talked to that I have way more in common than white people. I've had Spanish people that are way more similar, and it goes every different type of way, if you guys know what I'm saying. That's what makes you understand that you shouldn't always just judge a book by its cover, right? And it can go any way, right? It can go any way. All right, so I don't know, something I was thinking of. You guys let me know what you think about that, and I'll leave you guys with that. And you guys enjoy this awesome fight card. Again, stick with me throughout the fight week. Enjoy this fight card, make it a profitable one. Signing out, Teller.
Welcome to the show. This is the MMA fortune teller. Yeah.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.